Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here, talking SEC basketball after a weekend of NCAA Tournament action. We are down to 16 teams in the NCAA Tournament. Blake, there's only one way to start this video. You know what's coming, right?
Well, here's the thing.
You know what I'm reaching for, don't you?
Well, but here's the issue. On your side, your video's frozen, so I can't actually see how the development's going.
Well,
so I can hear it, but I can't actually see it this time. So
that's how it's going. Can you see it yet?
I can't see it. It's still on your side. You're still frozen to me. So, but I know it's recording fine on your side. But so I can't actually see this, and I'm actually anxious to see it once we finish recording. But I know what's there. Let's just put it that way. So
it's not a zero bar.
No, this is like a.
Although
like
it almost could have been
here.
a zero bar if not for Arkansas.
Yeah, well, it was close, I guess. So, yeah, it's something, man. And I told you before we started recording, I went a little deeper into this last night, looking at some numbers and some trends, and I think the league's got a bit of an issue. And it's boy, it's not ideal in terms of when you actually dig into some of the numbers and everything. But yeah, Auburn just got beat. They got outplayed.
Auburn got whipped.
Well, look, let me be honest with you. I said this, I don't remember and where, when, how I said this, but I said if you've looked at some of the common denominators between some of these SEC teams losing, is the other team, and it's not an effort thing. It's more of like an energy thing, if that makes sense. Like you see some of these teams like Miami, right? Like they just come out you could just tell like it's almost like it took some of the SEC teams a little bit longer to really find that next step. And for some teams, they could never find it. So I don't know. It was just, yeah, it's a completely disappointing loss for Auburn. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't know how else you say it, that they just did not play well and they got outplayed by Miami. Again, I know sometimes we always want to just focus on the team that lost, especially when that team's a higher seed. But, man, you got to give the other team credit, too, because they are a big reason in that. And I think Miami just came out, made a lot of tough shots. Auburn could not make anything. And, yeah, man, this was just was there really ever a point that you felt like Auburn was going to win? They never led the entire game. Just think about that. I just, so.
You know what? The bag of shame was going to be like a one-off thing. I did not know it was just going to keep going on and on and on in this tournament. I just didn't expect that. Maybe we should have known.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, I don't even know what you say about that game. Again, that was a game that I never felt great about what Auburn was going to do. And, that's deja vu because we've said that about the other games. It seems like, it's the Kentucky game. I said, hey, I know they're playing the 15 seed, but there just were many times in the second half where I said, I don't think Kentucky's going to win this game. And that was a lot closer than this one. But, once again, what did we say? We said the guard play and, really the shooting, that could be two of the things that could, put this team in a bad position. And let's be honest, too, Walker Kessler plays 13 minutes. You're not – think about that. The biggest game of the season, he plays 13 minutes and, just had 2 rebounds, 2 points, 2 blocks. It's just not – think about how different that is from the Auburn team that got here and just how dominant he could be at times. And that just was not the case here. So,
all right, I'm going to take off the bag of shame so I can read a box score. But
Jabari Smith goes 3 of 16 from the floor. Combine all that stuff together, you're not just beating Miami. Like, you're not beating the majority of the teams in this tournament with those kind of things. So.
That's my pet. Sitting a guy with 2 fouls is my pet peeve.
I don't know. Sometimes I think it's warranted in terms of watching how. But
there's no way Walker Kessler should have played 13 minutes. There's
Well,
also
I
no
don't think
way
that was
that
the
Auburn
difference,
should
to
have
be
been
honest with you.
outscored 30-1 in fast break points. That is crazy.
I said to someone last night too, I don't. That has to be a first for Bruce Pearl. in his coaching career. I can't imagine that he's had, because you think about how he likes to play, and I can't even imagine that he's had a team that's ever been outscored by that.
You have KD Johnson. How do you get outscored 30-1 in fast break points?
It's wild, man. So, I mean, that's just, like you said. There's no other way to put it. They just got beat. Like that, it's one of those games where other games we can kind of break down, okay, this and that, but Auburn just got beat. I mean, they just got, and again, I get it. Like, that's disappointing if you're an Auburn fan. But they just got beat. So not ideal. But so.
Okay, you mentioned some themes. What's one thing that we said all year with this league that if you wanted to pick a bone with it, it was what? It was 3-point shooting. I think Miles Studi led the league in 3-point shooting at Vanderbilt. I mean, I'm not sure we've mentioned Miles Studi's name more than 2 or 3 times on the podcast all year.
You sure he led the league?
I think he was close.
Well, I wonder what that's in relation to in terms of how many he attempted, because I think there's something to that as well. But
maybe so.
Please continue.
Because their bar for attempts is really high. Like, you have 3 people that qualify.
Yeah.
So, point is, it was not a banner year for 3-point shooting. And my goodness, that has hurt this league in the tournament.
Yes, and if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen me put out the stats last night as the Auburn game is in progress. And if you really want to have your mind blown by some of this, go look at it, because as we said, coming in, SEC ranked 29th out of 32 conferences nationally in 3-point shooting. And boy, was that on display, or has it been on been on display in this tournament. The team that is advanced, and we kind of said this, Arkansas is not really a team that necessarily has to rely on that, because they don't really do that a whole lot. So I really don't know that it's as applicable to Arkansas, and we've seen that, right? Because they're the team that's advanced. Arkansas in their 2 games go 7 of 21, 3 of 16 from 3. That's 33.3%, 18.8%. Kentucky went 4 of 15 for 26.7%. Alabama went 8 of 24, 33%. LSU 4 of 19, 21%. Tennessee against Michigan went 2 of 18, 11%, which, of course, worst shooting performance of the season for Tennessee, for a team that shot 37% from 3 this year, led the SEC. And then Auburn, would they go 5 of 25, something like that? Yeah, I mean, it's just, and we said, what did we really say in all these games? If you go back and you really think about what we talked about when we previewed it, and we said, all right, if you're trying to find ways to, if you're the opposition and you're looking at how do I try to beat some of these teams, I thought it was very simple. You try to make some of these teams shoot the ball from outside. And it's not like these teams just completely went off the rails and just shot way too many shots. But this is not a good shooting league. And let's just go ahead and transition into this next point. And I know we're going beyond the Auburn game here, but I'll be honest with you, Chris, I don't know what to say. I mean, what do you?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. And you look when you are doing the autopsy on these seasons, okay? And let me start by saying this: we watch the SEC a lot. I mean, we watched an inordinate amount of basketball in this league, so we know what your team did well and what they didn't do well. And sometimes when you do that, you can be too hard on teams for what they don't do well, because you're watching your team and you're not watching Miami, or you're not watching Dayton, or and you don't know their flaws as well as you know the flaws of the teams that you're covering. And so always take that into account. But having said that, I feel like of the 5 teams that are out of this tournament, 4 of them were scripts that were kind of semi-predictable, and Tennessee's was too. So you could go 5 for 5, but with Tennessee that hadn't shown up in a while, and frankly, any team can have a bad shooting night. I feel like with 4 of the 5 teams that are out, you can sort of point the finger at something they did wrong With Tennessee, they just didn't hit shots. They ran into a bad matchup. Tennessee's is excusable and explainable. I felt like with the other 4 teams that lost, that there was something there that was nagging all season, like a thorn in your side that just popped up again, and it wasn't totally surprising in how those teams took their exit. Is that fair?
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Now
I get
yours.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's just here's the deal. As a league, the SEC has a style, and I think it works against SEC teams, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily work when you get in these tournament settings. And here you go. This is all you need to know. And I know people are going to immediately jump on this and throw it one way, but I think there's a couple ways you can interpret this. Chris, of the 14 teams in the SEC, how many teams do you think average 20 or more free throws per game?
Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky come to mind.
You're gonna laugh at this because neither one of those or 2 of those are not even in this on the top 9.
Okay, well, obviously
There's 9 of 14 teams.
All right, let's just have it in order.
Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Georgia, Alabama, A&M, Auburn, LSU, Florida. All average 20 or more free throws attempts per game this season.
No, wait, that's right. Kentucky uncharacteristically did not get to the line a lot in the season, although it had more than its share against St. Peter's and still lost, which just makes that inexplicable. But
all right, now let's play this game. What do you think the highest number is of teams in the, let's say, 5 other power conferences, if you want to draw it at that? Big East, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC. What do you think the highest number is of teams that shoot 20 more free throws in those 5 leagues? Just pick a number.
23.
No, I mean, I'm talking about for each league, like what do you think is the top? I'm not saying go through each league. Gotcha. I'm saying what do you think the top number is? It's 9 in the SEC. What do you think the top number is in those in any of those 5 leagues?
5.
3.
Whoa.
Big East, only 3 teams shoot 20 or more free throws per game this season. In the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC, only 2 of their teams shoot 20 or more free throws per game. So
teams were relying a lot on points at the line, and that's dependent on how the game is called.
Yes. And that is why I think that when you look at the three-point shooting, which has been an absolute struggle, it makes sense why these teams would shoot a lot of free throws, right?
Right.
Because you clearly are not getting it from the three-point line. It's not effective. So, I mean, I just think that stylistically, the SEC clearly needs more efficient shooters, I think, overall across the board. You need teams that aren't just built maybe on one prolific shooter, if that. Like, you need multiple of those kind of guys. And, and it is. Like, it's one where I think so many teams relied on attacking the rim and getting to the free throw line that if that is not there, it changes. Like and to me, I think so many of these teams, if you really watched all these games, there was still a level of physicality, I think, that's similar to the SEC, if not more. I think especially when you're playing a team like Michigan, probably. But if you're not getting those same kind of opportunities, it can be tough. And so I think it just, to me, a lot of this comes down to, and I know, by the way, and we get called out for everything at this point, so it is what it is. But I know we're kind of veering off the base here, but this is a bigger discussion because what is the discussion on Monday morning?
The SEC choked.
Twitter. The SEC's terrible. The SEC was overrated. All this other stuff. So we have to start looking for, okay, what is happening here? Why is this going on? And I think that those are 2 big things. And is that a league problem to where how the league is officiated? Or is it just the style of play has become, there are so many good defensive teams, and I'm not I think that's exactly very true. Like we've talked about. I mean, look at the defensive teams, right? Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas. Go up and down the list. I mean, how many of these teams have kind of transformed themselves defensively this year? But I think there are just some of those little nuances that you saw in SEC play that maybe you did not see in some of these tournament games, and I think that SEC teams have had a hard time adjusting to that.
Well, look, Tennessee and Arkansas are two teams that absolutely that offense was predicated on guards getting to the basket and either converting and or getting fouled. You saw what happened with Tennessee. Arkansas survived really more because of defense than anything. Auburn's guard play was awful, which, again, it was not entirely unpredictable. To me, and as a sidebar, to me, and I think he's an outstanding coach. I think he's an elite coach, but Bruce Pearl's got to be asking himself some questions after the way that one went down. I mean, I don't think you have to dig too deeply to get there. When two of Kentucky's guards don't even want the ball in crunch time, that's a problem. Maybe that's unfair. But Kentucky got nothing out of Washington in the St. Peter's game. And then who am I leaving out? Oh, Alabama. We've talked about Alabama ad nauseum, and then Quinterly gets hurt on top of everything.
That one's a hard one to me, and I'm not saying the outcome's different, but when you do lose a guy that probably was going to be a huge factor in that game, and they had to have him, I just think it put them in a bad spot right off the bat. But again, it's not like you, even at that point, you still don't know what you're going to get from Alabama. So I don't know. There's a lot. It's disappointing. There's no other way to put it. But there's a lot, I think, of tiny things you could look at here and wonder what are the biggest issues maybe for that. But I'll say this too. Okay, this is the NCAA tournament, and for all the people that are knocking the SEC for losing some of these games, which again, Arkansas is in the Sweet 16. And by the way, if we do not, Chris, I don't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning, and that was a couple hours ago. So I don't know what we did or didn't say about Arkansas, but yes, Arkansas getting back to the Sweet 16, a huge accomplishment. There's no other way to put it. Major accomplishment.
And by the way, let's hit the pause button for a minute. We said Vermont was a tough matchup. That had nothing to do with Arkansas. What have we said about Arkansas from the beginning? We were not crazy about the draw, okay? Did Arkansas get a little bit of a break in round 2 by getting New Mexico State instead of Connecticut? Yeah, I think so. We've said this before too. You swap Arkansas and Auburn, and that's not fair, right? Because Arkansas earned a 4 and Tennessee Auburn earned a 2. And so you can't do that, but it's matchups. Like if Arkansas was down right now in the Midwest, I'm liking them to the Elite 8 and maybe the Final 4. And then after that, who knows? But point is, it's about matchups sometimes, and we weren't crazy about theirs, but let's give them credit for getting that far. I mean,
well, I just think it's again, I do think that, and this is mentioned a lot because again, Arkansas is the only team left, but I hate the stuff out there because that's what people have turned to as well. It's like, oh, the SEC is overrated, but
no, the SEC had a bad tournament.
I was going to say, they say the SEC is rated. Oh, and Arkansas got to the Sweet 16 by beating 2 double-digit seeds. Like, don't give me that stuff because who are they supposed to beat, right? Like, they beat the 2 teams that are in front of them.
Vermont was a nightmare to match up against for anybody.
Sorry,
they
guys,
won the game.
We don't want to play New Mexico State in the second round. We'd like to go play Gonzaga in the second round instead. Yeah. Can we please switch brackets? That's not how it works. So,
does Purdue owe people an apology for getting St. Peter's in the Sweet 16? I mean, come on.
There's so much nonsense out there on social media right now on the SEC, but it's people having fun, and let's be honest, a lot of it stems from football.
Sure.
People like to get at the SEC any chance they can get, and we appreciate that. So I don't know what else to say because I think it's, again, there's one team left. Arkansas was able to adjust and navigate to get to the Sweet 16, and I think the SEC in the NCAA tournament this year is going to be seen as a disappointment. And I think that's not the first league that's happened to. It won't be the last league that happened to, because we always say the tournament is about matchups, and I don't think a lot of these SEC teams, as we saw, especially with Auburn on Sunday, adjusted well enough to just to the differences in perhaps style and those kind of things. And it was clearly on display. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what else you say. It's disappointing for the league. So
let's give a little credit where it's due to the ACC. I did not like the way the committee treated the ACC. I thought every team was overseeded by one line, sometimes two. But they got 3 teams in the 16. And it was earned. You had Carolina knocking off a 1-seed Baylor after blowing a huge lead. So maybe the committee knew something, that the SEC or the ACC was better than the computer numbers. Notre Dame made a nice run too against Texas Tech. Could have easily been there too. So hats off to the ACC. I was critical of the committee for treating those teams the way it did, but you've got to acknowledge that league's had a good run.
Be careful what I say here. Yet it still doesn't justify certain things.
You stop the point.
Sure
you stop the. Well, I mean, look, okay.
The A&M thing. Listen, and I've seen this a lot. A lot of people out there changing their tune, saying, "Oh, well, look, that's why A&M didn't get in." No, that still does not solve
A&M
it.
still should have been in. By the way, the NIT, which has been a sneaky good tournament this year, apparently all the teams from the power conferences that were first out took it seriously. You still got Vandy and A&M playing over there. So there's that. I mean, I think it's a footnote, but it is that. So
yeah. Well, again, I think a lot of frustration around the league right now, and yeah. So
okay, let's turn this in a different direction. What does the league learn from what happened last week?
I think it's everything I said a minute ago. I think it's well. Look,
but let's go. Does the league need to call games differently?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just being honest with you. I don't think it's going to happen. We've been saying this for 5 years more now. I mean, it's just we can play the wishful thinking all we want, but it hasn't happened at this point, and I don't really see it happening. But I do think there are times where the SEC does itself no favors when it comes to teams in the postseason. But again, it could be that, or you know what? It could just be the NCAA tournament, because Arkansas is still in. I mean, again, it's not like everyone's just wiped out of there, and I get it. I mean, 5 of the 6 teams are, but sometimes you just the other team makes more plays, and sometimes you just get outplayed. And
basketball has randomness to it. Tennessee went to Kentucky.
Definitely has randomness.
Well, let me back out from this, okay? Tennessee goes to Kentucky in mid-January and gets its clock cleaned by 28 points, and it was every bit of that. Tennessee gets Kentucky twice more, once in Knoxville, once on a neutral floor, wins them both. So here's where I'm going to go with this, okay? Knowing what we know, factoring in where teams collapsed, let's say you start the tournament over from 68 again. Play it again, knowing it could go much differently. What do you think happens? Because I think Tennessee moves on. Auburn, I don't know.
Well, let's
Auburn,
be honest too. Let's be honest on this. Who are the 2 teams of the top 4 that we said were playing the best heading into the final couple weeks of the season?
Tennessee and Arkansas.
Correct. And the 2 teams that weren't were Auburn and Kentucky. Now, again, whether you thought that was fair or unfair, I mean, I think there was probably something to it. So and I probably did not put enough into that. I'm gonna be honest with you. That I mean, again, I'm never always right, as you've seen.
But okay,
I don't think I put enough into that.
but
So
and maybe not, because that has haunted me too. You heard me pick Auburn to the Final Four, but very reluctantly. I said I like the matchup, I like the bracket. I still think Auburn got a great draw, but you got to win the games. Kentucky, I think I should have listened to you more on that one. That one's on me. South Carolina, the year South Carolina went to the Final Four, you go back and look it up. That team didn't close well. There was nothing in there to make you think that team was going to go on a run, and it did. And at that point, if you're a South Carolina fan, what was that, 2016? You're probably thinking, great times ahead. We got a coach who's taken Kansas State to the tournament a bunch of times. We got momentum that's going to help us in recruiting. Hadn't even been back to the NCAAs, Blake.
yeah, so I mean that's the thing is that was kind of the point for people was, well, it's which way do you look at it? Because when South Carolina made the Final Four, everyone was like, well, look at the randomness of the NCAA tournament. Well, if not enough SEC teams make the 16, that's nothing to do with randomness in the tournament.
Yeah,
it's
everybody just goes
bad.
to light the league on
Right?
fire. Right.
So, I mean, again, let's be honest. We all understand social media sometimes. There are people who just are there just to troll, and it's fine. I don't have to me, this is all in good fun, although clearly if you're an SEC team minus Arkansas, you haven't had a lot of fun over the past week. But, so it's just I don't take this too seriously. I think, though, I think it's worth digging a little deeper, which I don't think a lot of people will do, the ones who just want to kind of look at the SEC. But as someone, who talks a lot about SEC basketball, and we probably do it more than anybody, it's just I think you have to dive a little bit deeper into that. So,
well, if people, we are not hot take guys. We will give you opinions. We will give you reasons. We don't guarantee they're right. And when we're wrong, we'll let you know, and we'll let you know where we missed it. So I think most people are here for that. It doesn't change. The league was a good league. Bruce Pearl said it last night. He's right. Were there red flags we could have seen coming with the league? Yes. And I think if you watch enough of us, you know pretty much all of them. I just didn't think they were all going to pop up at once with everybody. I mean, and again, I maintain you play the tournament again, and odds are it will not go this badly for the SEC, but that's not how it's played.
I mean, SEC is just at an interesting time, I think. Because, again, I don't think the SEC was a bad basketball league this year. I don't even think necessarily it was overrated. I really think it comes down to style. Like I honestly do. I think a lot of it comes down to style. And I think it's become that league that, I mean, look, this was not, I've said this in videos before. This was not that different from the 3-point shooting, at least. It's not that different from what it has been. Last year, SEC finishes 22nd out of 32 conferences. Year before that, 28th. 23rd. The league has always been about great athleticism, great sort of guys who just have a ton of speed, very strong, physical. It's kind of always been that kind of league, at least in recent times.
Well, here's the thing. The league has always had teams with shooters. You've had a Chris Lofton at Tennessee. You've had a Lee Humphrey at Florida. You've had a John Jenkins and a million guys.
See, but that
Vandy.
was a decade ago or more.
Well, I know,
think that's what we're meaning.
But that's
it's
what
not
that's
as much
what
that way anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got to get back to that. That's the one thing that you can identify and take all fluke this, bad draw that out of it. That's one thing that's glaring. When Miles Studi is maybe your league's most accurate shooter, you got a problem.
Well, and I think it's more about just, again, it's just having the reliability of, again, if not just one guy, right, but it's multiple guys. But, I mean, look, I don't think this is necessarily just an SEC thing. I mean, I think it's just, I don't know. I'd love to see those numbers, for anyone who would do that. Just kind of.
It's not, but it's become more pronounced, Blake. I mean, you and I could sit here and we could name 2 or 3 great shooters at every program in our lifetime without even needing to go look stuff up. You can't. I mean, like I said, Kellen Grady to me was the best outside shooter in the league this year. And when it came down to Kentucky's biggest game of the year, when it mattered, he didn't want the ball. That is an indictment. I'm sorry. The league it's a great league. I don't buy the league sucks or it was overrated or whatever. Yeah. Was it maybe a little bit overrated? Sure, I'll give you that. But don't give me this the league stinks. But that's one thing that's inarguable. You got to have more shooters in this league. There's no way around it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, that's what I said earlier. I mean, I think if every team had 2 guys that could just knock down threes at a very high rate, it would be a big difference, because that's where, you put yourself, if you're playing from behind, and you're needing a lot of that to come from 2 or the free throw line, that's the longer way to catch up, right? Is having to do it that way versus being able to essentially do what an Alabama did last year, right? Where you could just make up so much ground in a span of 2 minutes just because you could come out and hit 4 threes. And that's because they took a lot of them, but they did hit a lot too. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. I'm curious what other people think. And I know there'll be a wide variety of opinions on this, and I appreciate that, because I think it's worth the conversation, especially after, the way things have played out. So I think it's an interesting discussion, and I'm very curious to see what everyone else thinks. Just about the state of the league, not even really just, okay, why this team got eliminated or why that team got eliminated. I think we've gone that route. We've looked at all of this, and like I said, if you want more of a thorough breakdown of the Auburn Miami game, I'm sorry, I don't know what else to tell you. That was just a game that I just thought Auburn did not play well, and I don't really know what else you say. Give Miami a ton of credit. Like I said, they hit a ton of shots, made more plays, and just looked like the better team. So,
yeah. Well coached team, veteran guards.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just, yeah. I don't have anything else for you. So,
well, here's another thing. I would like to replay Auburn season without the Alan Flanagan injury. When was it, August? And again, it happens to a lot of teams. There's a lot of injuries. I get it, but that was your guard that was making a lot of stuff happen for them at the end of last year. And he gets 5 points in 28 minutes last night. Goes 2 for 7 from the field. Does get 8 boards. But Alan Flanagan, fully healthy, is better than we saw this year, and that's one thing I regret for Auburn.
Yeah, it's a lot of what ifs, and again, that's for the 5 teams who are eliminated. They will be thinking about those quite a bit, I'm sure, this offseason. But the Must Bus rolls on, so headed to San Francisco. That's cool from us. I like him, because back to San Francisco, obviously know the roots there and all that. So yeah, we'll certainly talk more about that game this week, and got a lot to look at with the Zags. So,
all right, help out the people who help us, and let's start with MyBookie. The madness has officially begun. I would say that for sure. It's time to shoot your shot, score big on the big stage with nonstop action with MyBookie. It does not matter whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting the national championship winner, or simply looking for player and game props. MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today at MyBookie. Use the promo code Southeastern to secure a first deposit bonus up to $1,000. It's simple. Put in $200. Play with $300. Just use promo code Southeastern to claim your bonus. College ball, NBA, UFC, no matter the sport or the minute, MyBookie puts the action in your hands with in-game live betting. And choose from thousands of lines and odds so you can turn any game day into payday. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie. Now, if you want to bet, you don't want to involve money. You can wager on sports and win NFTs without risking any money. It sounds too good to be true, but it's not. Stakes is the wagering app that's casual, social, made for all sports fans, whether it's by yourself or with friends. Experience the thrill of sports betting without needing to worry about losing your hard-earned money. Sign up, use the code Southeastern14. Join the thousands of other sports fans playing with Stakes. And I meant to get in and create some polls with that yesterday. Did not, ran out of time, but we'll be doing that soon.
Yeah, we got a lot more to come. Got a lot of coaching hires to talk about, and that's a good point, I think, to kind of transition and off of what we just talked about. There's going to be some new coaches in the league. I think there's going to be some different styles, perhaps. Yeah, man, it's just we've always said, right? You can't talent alone is not going to win you championships, and SEC's gotten a lot of talent in recent years, and I think it's just there are a lot of things you have to look at. And again, we're mostly talking about this when it comes to the NCAA tournament, which is still a hard thing to do because it is such a random deal every year. And because, again, who had St. Peter's in the Sweet 16? All these different things. So it's very interesting to think about it. I would love to see people's thoughts on what they think when they watch, the SEC this year versus what they've seen in the tournament. Like, what are some of the glaring things that you've really looked at that stood out? And I know not everyone. Look, I realize not everyone's rooting for the other team. Like, they want their favorite team to succeed. You don't necessarily care if the other teams lose. But if you watch the tournament, I'm curious if there's anything you've noticed about why do you think this has happened? Like, why do you think? Do you think it's just the tournament? Do you think it's a lot more than that? Let us know.
Okay, here's one thing, and I can't believe we didn't think of this.
Well, there's a lot happening, so I wouldn't be shocked.
What was the one theme we said in the SEC that held true all year? Home court.
I have no
home
idea.
court.
Yeah, right. And
Tennessee unbeaten at home, 2 and out in the NCAAs. Kentucky unbeaten at home, 1 and done. Auburn unbeaten at home, 2 and out. Arkansas, it hasn't mattered yet, but
yeah.
Again, you look at things in hindsight, and maybe that should have told us a little bit more.
Well, we did mention that going into the tournament.
That's
was
true.
One of the big things we talked about was we said this tournament's going to tell us a lot about that, and yeah, probably something to it as well. So, boy, this is, again, I know this is a very wide-ranging discussion, but I think it's warranted because I think it is something worth pointing out, especially when you can look at some of the numbers and see where things are at. And again, I think it's just a lot of teams just did not adjust well, and we thought maybe not playing SEC teams could be a good thing. Turns out that not playing SEC teams was
a very
bad thing for several teams, minus one. So, yeah.
Shout out to Vanderbilt and A&M for hitting the quarterfinals of the NIT. Vanderbilt beat the number 1 overall seed in Dayton. That game was at Vanderbilt because Dayton had a high school state basketball tournament on its campus. So Vandy catches a break there, which it didn't catch a lot all year. So congrats to the Commodores and A&M too, which has played really well so far and now has Wake Forest while Vanderbilt's got Xavier.
Yeah, should be interesting, huh? So
yeah, Vandy will be on the road and A&M will be at home.
Yeah.
Florida also won a game in the tournament before bowing out to Xavier.
Well, if you enjoyed the rants on this one, wait until the coaching one so I can talk about Dennis Gates because, boy, Missouri fans, I love you guys, but we got to have a chat. So
you don't mess with Dennis Gates' agent.
We got to have a chat because there are a lot of uninformed opinions out there that we're going to need to roast. So we may title this next video the Comedy Central Roast of Uninformed Fans because a lot to discuss.
Well, keep the comments coming. They're not always kind. We get that. That happens. We've started to blow up a little bit here at the 14, and that comes with the territory. We're good. We're big boys.
Hey,
we can
listen,
take it.
Let me say this real quick. I do appreciate our commenters. I know, again, I always say you're not going to agree with everything we say, and we honestly may not agree with what you say sometimes, but the interaction is fun. We don't just want to do this in a room by ourselves with no outside opinions, which is why usually I at least try to say, what do you guys think before we end any video, which like we just did, because it is important. Like I think it's important to share your opinion. And I always say, if everyone agreed on everything, it would be very boring. So we're not we're not gonna get everything right all the time, but we do appreciate all the feedback. And yeah, it's something. Like this league has been so wild this year, and to see how many different fan bases and all that we've had to come in here is pretty fun. Even like I said, even the ones that have come from the other conferences to troll us over the past couple of days, we still appreciate you as well. So.
And one other thing, conference baseball season started this weekend, conference only. We do have recaps of all 3 days of games. We're going to hit baseball as hard as we hit basketball. But right now we're mostly a 2-man show, and because of that, look, this is what you live for if you're a basketball fan. And so we have backed off baseball coverage a little bit till we can get this over with, but you'll start to see that crank up this week. Boy, it'll be as fun as it was in basketball. It's going to be at least that much fun in baseball. And so I did try to keep an eye on that this weekend too.
Yeah, a lot to come.
A lot to come. Coaching talk coming next, so we'll end this and get to that. If you're watching, hit subscribe. And again, we appreciate you watching. Leave your comments, and we'll catch you again soon.